Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision makers. This week, I'm talking with Scott Isaacs, the president of Brixx Wood Fired Pizza, a full-service pizza concept out of Charlotte, North Carolina, that had 20 locations at the end of 2023, but it is looking to grow, particularly through franchising. Scott is a restaurant industry veteran, including 25 years spent at Darden, and he is tasked with bringing new energy and momentum to this 26-year-old concept. Scott joined the podcast to talk about the state of full-service pizza and how Brixx's value-oriented experience might appeal to franchisees in the years ahead. In this conversation, you will learn more about why you should raise prices because you have to, not because you want to, why the next generation might have a different definition of value, and why food, service, and atmosphere are three critical ingredients to loyalty. Jumping now into my interview with Brixx Wood Fired Pizza's Scott Isaacs. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I am sitting down with Scott Isaacs of Brixx Pizza. But Scott, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I love Nation Restaurants News, and I can tell you right now, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and I didn't pay you to say that, but I do appreciate it. I always love being flattered a little bit. So, Scott, you're a longtime veteran of this industry, but new to Brixx. So can you tell me a little bit about your background leading up to coming to Brixx?
Sure. I don't want to give away my age too quickly here, but I started in this business when I was 14, and what a great career it's been. I don't know that we have enough time to go through it all, but I've had the opportunity to work for some major brands, some Fortune 500 companies out there, and got to tell you that I love the business. I love the people. I love the food piece of it, and I'm relentless in trying to find the steps that are going to get us to this brand up to a 50 to 75 unit fairly quickly restaurant company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, pizza, it's pizza. It sells itself, right?
Yeah,
but I'm sure there were other things about this particular concept that interested you to want to join as president. Can you tell me what that was?
Yeah, 100%. First of all, I think our business model is fantastic. I absolutely love it. We are positioned well from an infrastructure standpoint to grow the company. I would tell you that this company not only reaches out to pizza lovers, it is a high-end pizzeria, but it also has what I would call a menu that we've worked very hard on to develop what I would call the veto vote. The veto vote meaning the people that come into our restaurants that really don't want that IPA or 21 of 24 craft beers and a pizza, but absolutely would get after outstanding salad or outstanding wings. I talked to our VP of culinary just this morning, and I asked him what he was most proud of on the menu. And believe it or not, he is very proud of our pizzas. But he's more proud of what he's done with the rest of the menu to address that veto vote and to have folks that love a great wing that's never fried, that's baked twice in a wood fire oven. We don't even have fryers in our restaurants. And the flight of salads, he couldn't quite quit talking about.
Yeah. No, I mean, I of course, like pizza, again, one of the most universal dishes, but anymore with the amount of competitors and the amount of options out there, I imagine you really do have to find all of those offerings that eliminate that veto vote as you talk about. Now, one thing that's interesting about Brixx, and I told you before we hit record, Brixx is near and dear to me. Having lived in North Carolina for many years, I'm very familiar with the concept, went many times. This is a full service concept. And so I wanted to explore that because full service pizza, it's a little bit more unique in that pizza traditionally delivery, of course the big pizza companies delivery only. What makes full service work for Brixx in particular?
There's no doubt. Our brand slogan is we bring people together, and we like to do that through our people that we employ. And you can do that with full service. It's a little tougher with QSR or a little tougher with fast casual. So we like to knock the socks off our guests with our food first and foremost, because as you know, and as everybody in the industry knows, this business is about food first. If you can't deliver on high quality, great food, and brother, I think we got it. I mean, I love our formula. Then you can forget the rest. Now we enhance that dining experience through great service and great atmosphere. Hence our brand slogan that we bring people together. So our target audience is families. And it is unique. There's no doubt about it. One of the things that attracted me to this brand is that, first of all, I love the business model, but secondly, it is a higher end pizzeria with a great craft bar, and you can watch your favorite sports show when you walk in. And in addition, if you're getting off the golf course and playing 18 holes, and your partner wants to go have a pizza and an IPA, I'm sure your significant others would love to join you and have the option to get a great baked wing or a great salad or even a pasta.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that sort of the bar component here too, because so if we take a step back and we look at the industry, I mean, of course, I think sports bar concepts have done fairly well. I think I'd say in a post-pandemic era, arguably they fall under sort of the experiential category. Lots more people wanting to get out of the house. Sports bar is a great opportunity to be able to do that. And so tell me about sort of the bar element of Brixx. I mean, how many people are coming in just for a drink? How many people come in just to engage with it as a bar concept versus the restaurant side? And how many people are kind of doing both experiences?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. The driver of our concept is first and foremost food. We are known for our food, and being from Carolina, I think you understand that. Then we enhance the experience with a great craft bar, which if I'm guessing, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but if I'm giving you a really good educated guess, I would say 20% of our guests that come into our restaurants are going to go up to the bar and have a beer and then take a look at our menu.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole package, really. When you look at Brixx Wood Fired Pizza and you look at our craft bar and you look at what we've done with the brand refresh over the last couple of years, there's really nothing stopping this brand. Our goal is to expand in the South to start with. And then who knows, the runway is extremely long. Even international development, we've looked at that. We're not committed to it, but really pizza is the number one craveable food in the world. We all know that. Internationally right now, there's a big craving, especially in the Middle East and in India, for American pizza brands in those areas. So we're going to explore that. We're not quite committed to that yet, but we're certainly going to explore that route as we continue this journey and grow this brand over the next several years.
Yeah, and thinking about growth right now, of course, real estate's tough. The construction still struggling post-pandemic.
Yep.
So when I think about, again, a full-service pizza concept and one that's wood-fired, I mean, that so you guys have got a pretty high-quality setup in terms of equipment and things like that. You're competing against, well, a lot of these, 500 square foot, punch them in to a strip center kind of takeout delivery kind of pizza place.
That's right.
What's the growth strategy, I guess, as you go into a new community with a Brixx? What's the play here for finding the right real estate, finding that right location that is perfect for the core demographic that you guys get for Brixx?
Yeah, that's an excellent question too. We predominantly go into retail environments and end caps and don't necessarily go out and buy our properties quite yet. We have that option on the table, but predominantly 3,800 square feet does it for us, with garage doors that open up and go out into a patio that turns it out to a 5,000 square foot restaurant. That's what differentiates us from the concepts that you were talking about. There's a bit more of urgency to go out and dine at an upper end pizzeria for casual dining purposes when you have that deck and you have that entertainment and you have those TVs and you have great people at a full service from a full service thought process. I would put our pizza up, Sam, against anybody's in the industries. I can tell you right now that doing my homework before I joined this brand, there are three things that make a pizza great. And believe me, we have the freshest ingredients in the world and they are awesome. But you got to focus on the crust, you got to focus on the sauce, and you got to focus on the cheese. And we spent a significant amount of time researching that out. And I can tell you that it's top notch in all three of those areas. We use the highest quality ingredients, and it definitely differentiates us from the next person that is in this category.
Yeah. So then I have to ask, I mean, of course, millions of Americans, myself included, now that I have children, my experience of pizza is Friday night, 5 o'clock. Where are we getting our pizza from? I am not eating it at the restaurant. I am eating it on my couch with a movie because my kids are young. I don't, they're not quite the age where it's like it's comfortable or, I don't have the patience to go to a restaurant. So I have to ask, what's the off premises then business for Brixx? Because I imagine you still have a lot of takeout and maybe delivery.
We sure do. Another great question. Thank you. We, obviously during the pandemic, it was significantly different. We had to pivot like everyone else to keep our head above water. And we went from 70, 80% third-party delivery, takeout sales, pickup sales, And now we're still operating between 20 and 30% of our sales. We have not ignored that segment, nor as long as I'm in position will we ever ignore that segment. We have to have great third-party delivery. You have to understand the economics of that because it is a different economic business plan. And you can never relent from that because of the consumer and the attitude of the consumer of what they want to do with pizza, just like you said.
And does it make sense then? Would you ever consider like Brixx to go or Brixx Express, or like would it ever make sense then to have one that's just turning out pizzas, doesn't have like the bar, for example?
I could tell you what my future thoughts are. I mean, I'll share my vision, but I probably ought to hit stop record.
You can hint at things if that's easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We had a conversation last week, my executive team and myself, about how that may look potentially to test a fast casual pizza concept with our name on it. The real risk there is that you don't want to deviate from the brand too much. You don't want to try to be all things to all people right out of the chute. That's certainly in our playbook, Sam. I'm not going to turn my head on looking at testing a concept like that. But our number one objective is to find great franchise owners right now and develop in the South, maybe a little bit further west, because our concept opens up to an awesome patio. Don't get me wrong. We've had leads come in from Wisconsin, up north, and we certainly will entertain anywhere. But at the end of the day, the cool thing about our concept is you can sit on patio, open up those doors, and it looks like a 5,000 square foot restaurant. Now you can do that 7-8 months out of the year, depending upon how far south you go. The further north you go, it's a little bit tougher. So we got to be very mindful of how our prototypes look in different markets going forward. And we've certainly taken that into consideration. When I talked to a gentleman last week from Wisconsin that is really interested in dropping one of our concepts, well, how would that look? It would look a little bit different. We would shrink that patio a little bit and bring up the dining room size. But as you know, the larger the size of the dining room, the more it costs to develop and to operate that. So there's a balance there. And then you take into factor and consideration the whole labor piece. Yeah. So how does the industry challenge that and really respond to that and keep our margins as such where investors are attracted to it? Our answer to that is that you always balance that. Careful consideration of your menu, which is non-complex. We have a very non-complex menu, easily executable. We've only got 3 or 4 incredibly great pieces of equipment behind our line that produce, and fryers are not one of them. So we feel great about that. So how do we do that and balance the labor piece of it? Well, that's a balancing act. It has been forever, and it will be forever. Our business model allows us, because of who we are and what we do, to leverage the cost of goods sales piece and offset some of that. So we can actually invest a little bit more into our labor and still deliver those margins, which that's really ultimately, when I talk about business model, like at the beginning of our conversation, that's what excites me, because my background is first and foremost a significant love for operations and have done quite well in that arena throughout my lifetime. But I also have a second love that I worked in for 7 years for a major player in finance and accounting as a controller. And I can tell you that that piece is just as important to me as the operational piece, because combined, those two elements will help our investors make a decision on whether or not they want to open up just one or a flight of Brixx Wood Fired Pizzas.
Sure. Well, Scott, you might be my first guest who ever said, I have a love for finance and accounting, but somebody had to do it. I know you're out there. And it's not me. So I'm going to throw some hypotheticals at you. I'm going to guess are true. So right now, economy still kind of in a weird place. Inflation still stubbornly high. Interest rates still stubbornly high. The anticipation is that the interest rates will come down. The economy will improve. And I imagine when this does happen, and could even be happening right now, that franchising is going to take off as capital becomes more affordable. There's a lot of hunger for franchise concepts. And I'm also assuming that a full service pizza concept, there's not a lot of franchised full service pizza concepts out there. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are sitting in a pretty good position that you guys would really complement the portfolio for all these franchisees who are going to be interested in the segment pretty soon.
100%. I couldn't have said that any better. This is the perfect time. It's a perfect time to position ourselves. And that's exactly and precisely what I've been working on, by the way, for the last 15 months in position here, is building the infrastructure to position ourselves to support great growth and to make sure that we're great franchisors, because that is a definite marriage that has to occur. You have to be a great franchisor, got to be a great franchisee. And together, you do well, hopefully. And you're spot on. The economy is sending a lot of false signals here. We know when you look at the data, we know that our economy is humming along just fine. Commercial real estate in a little bit of hot water. Okay, we get it. It's a perfect position to be in. But more importantly, disposable income has never been lower because of that inflation that you've talked about. So that is a headwind. Yeah. I view it a little bit differently, Sam. I think that it's not only a headwind, but it's also a tailwind, because there's never in the history of this country been more dual working income families, and bless them. I mean, because it's to make ends meet. And that unfortunately takes away from the dining room table time, the cooking time, and it puts you in the convenience of ordering time because of all the dual working income families. So we believe we can leverage that a little bit. What we've worked on over the last 14, 15 months is to be very, very careful on our pricing strategy. You've got concepts out there that have taken 3, 4, 5 pricing lifts over the last 18 months. And I have done my darndest to control the cost of goods sales piece the right way with inflation in place, and only take pricing twice over the last 18 months. So our value, which is what this concept was built on, as you know, growing up in the Carolinas, our value and taste of food is the equation. That is the equation that built this concept, and I have never looked past that. I think that you can still walk in our restaurants, a family of 4, and eat like you've never eaten before, and have a great glass of wine, and have a nice IPA or a soft drink of your choice, and still get out there at a fairly reasonable rate, and understanding that it's not going to cost you $400, $300 to do that. You can get out there at a fairly good rate, and the families feel good about the value still. We've got to leverage that value, Sam. I think the industry's got to leverage that value going forward, because I think as time goes on, there's a little bit more stronger of a headwind coming with the economy. Now, and everyone probably that's hearing this knows what goes around comes around. History repeats itself. So you got to stay strong and true to yourself. Leverage the pricing as you have to, not because you can, as you have to, and then you will win from a long-term sustainability standpoint. If you want to fix your business model now or over the last 2 years, and you just want a short-term result, you can go price the heck out of things, and the consumer will put up with it for only so long. And then they're going to come right back to the value piece.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up value. I wanted to talk about that because, again, as a doing my part in consuming as much pizza as possible, I get a lot of texts every Friday because they know how I behave, right?
Yeah.
All the big guys, hey, here's this, BOGO, or here's this, new deal. And of course, all the major pizza delivery chains. You go to their website, and the first place you go to is deals. I mean, they have it right there, right? Like I wouldn't order pizza any other way. I'm looking for what's the deal. And it's hyper value oriented. Now, no offense to any of those pizza guys, I'm of course not naming names, but I don't choose any of them for their quality or their taste. It is really just like, let's change things up, and what am I paying today? So that is true value as it has historically been, right? That is discounting, that is bundling, etc. But value has really been, as we've sort of had this theory at NRN, like the definition of value is also changing because now all of a sudden accessibility is part of the value equation. Convenience is part of the value equation. Now for you guys, experience is part of the value equation. I certainly am among the folks who would find that IPA as being a big part of the value equation, and seeing the price point. So all of that is to say, as a restaurant veteran, tell me about this sort of new definition of value and how Brixx really does, again, with sort of the full service experiential component and technology, digital ordering, all that stuff. How does this come around into the value equation you want to go forward with, I guess?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's an excellent point. And here's where you have to be really good at strategy, right? So if you look across generations, from the older generation all the way down to the Zers and the generation honestly behind them now, our way of determining value is different at every generation, and the marketing is different. We've gone from paper to digital. That's a whole other bucket of conversation I'm glad to hit on here in a second.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're dealing with generations where you have to be able to reach out to all of them somewhat and continue the evolution of your business by continuing to reach out to the younger generation. So value is determined not by price. Value is determined by what you get for what you pay. So I've walked into restaurants, and I'm sure you have too, where you might see a server walk by with a plate of nachos that's as big as 4 dinner plates. And those nachos might be $19.99, but they serve 8 people. Well, that's a great value. That's a great value for the consumer. In some cases, value is determined by what you do for a discount, but discounting now is really mainly digital. I mean, you've got to really be on your game when it comes to rewards points on apps and things that reach out to the millennials and the Generation Zers, where we've got the boomers that are still around, right? They love direct mail, but direct mail now is called geofencing with the younger generation. So there's all kinds of ways to approach it. And, our marketing person, Yoshi, is all over that. But we can never let our eyes off the generations to come. And if we do that, that's when you kind of lose the business. And if my testimonial doesn't work, you can ask Howard Johnson's. We did a case study on Howard Johnson's. They refused to change their business model. And as they evolved, along came Courtyard, along came Hampton, and kicked their tail. And they went bankrupt. Right. And so that's what we have to do in the restaurant business. We not only have to really leverage technology, but we have to evolve and continue to reach out to different generations.
Yeah. Well, thinking about, again, some of the big chains and my ordering process with them. And by the way, I live in Columbus, Ohio now, so I don't have a Brixx. So this makes me very sad. But, as you look for new markets, you heard it here first. This is a good market for you. So we'll talk. But, when I'm looking at these big chains and I get into those deals, we all know what happens by the end of my process. Oh, this is $20 more than they promised. What's happening here? Because I'm like a delivery fee, service fee, it's all, And so I've been having this conversation with a lot of folks lately in the industry, which is like, I think myself, I'm an elder millennial, but I think younger millennials, Gen Z especially, the value equation is also so different because I just think they don't bat an eye at some of those things now. The fees, the tipping, all this stuff is so normal to them. So I swear something that might have been $12 for me, like I might have got a $12 meal in college, walked out and felt like, ooh, spending kind of a lot of money. Today, a college student might spend $25 to have it delivered and not really think about the price point as much as, well, I didn't have to leave my couch, right? So does that factor in your decision making? Because of course, Brixx being not as heavy on the off premises, and so I'm assuming not as heavy on service charges or tipping or anything like that. Yeah. But does it, I guess, change the way you approach that value piece?
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, you summed it up. Millennials, Generation Zers, if they don't have to get off the couch, they can use their phone. They're going to do it. They don't even blink an eye at the pricing, which a guy that's my age thinks, well, I'll go 3 blocks and pick it up. Just tell me.
Totally.
It's not a big deal. Not a big deal for me. So that's precisely what I was talking about. We have to learn and we have to get better at how to market towards that generation, the older generation who still does not believe in that, and still deliver what we view, the consumer views, as a discount. So how do you do that? Well, there's certain ways to do it. With the millennials and the Generation Zers, it really is about technology. It really is about apps. It's about reward systems. It's about, if you don't load rewards on somebody who has an app that uses it all the time, I guarantee you're getting a call the next day. And that's their view of couponing, which is great. That's awesome. But that's not the coupon that we would drop. Let's just say on a Sunday coupon drop, which I'm not a big fan of, but people still love that process. They happen to be the boomers and a little bit younger, but they still love that process. Quality does play into the factor of value. And so when you eat our pizzas, we know that we have the highest quality of products. We know our price point is super low with our competitive set. So we are performing miracles in that area. And so when the consumer takes a bite of our pizza and they are shocked and they come back and say, I got to have it again. It's craveable food. It creates repeat guests. Our challenge, and it's every restaurant company's challenge, of all the brands I've worked for, it's been a challenge, is to continue to menu engineer and drive food that is differentiated. So where can I go and not get this product anywhere else? I can't. I can only get it at Brixx. So that's our challenge. That's what I've challenged our VP of Culinary, is to develop products of differentiation that's craveable and that people come back with. We've got a whole menu of that right now. And it's great because people come in for certain items that they can't get anywhere else. And it continues to build repeat guests. Creating that high quality food and that value pricing is a win.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought quality up because, I think pizza, some of the pizza chains take chances. I mean, you look at the last couple
Sure.
of years, Hot Honey had a moment, maybe still having a moment. Pickles suddenly found their way onto pizzas.
Yeah.
They'll try some things, but that's one thing I did love about Brixx is like you guys had more license to kind of take some big swings with flavors. Tell me about to your point, it's a differentiator to have these unique flavors. So what is that R&D process like? Is there a going too far with your pizzas in particular?
No, we spent some time in research and development about 2 years ago with a consulting company that refreshed our brand a little bit. So we went from a rolled pizza dough to a hand stretched dough. We import our flour from Italy, Naples, and I believe that's where pizza was invented. It's now a worldwide craving, but we import our flour from there. We use the highest quality tomatoes out of California, and I think our cheese vendor. I spent some time with them at the Pizza Expo in Las Vegas, and I can tell you that they are one of the best vendors I've ever worked with. Grande Cheese out of Wisconsin, outstanding company, really have high quality cheese. So we use those three. Those three vendors really are the baseline for, I would say, the highest quality of pizzas. And our ingredients are all fresh. I mean, they're all fresh. They're great. We just don't turn our head on those three things. And as long as I'm president of this company, that is a filter that will never go, it'll never pass. It'll never pass.
Yeah.
We've got to be about the pizza.
Right. You brought up earlier loyalty, and I think that's really interesting because that is part of, I think you were talking about a little bit with the value equation. But loyalty is so key. And again, not to bring myself into this too much, but you can tell I'm a pizza fan. When I was in college, my wife and I, when we were in a group of friends, every Friday night was pizza and a pitcher of beer. It was, we had our spot. There was this place. Yeah. If you know of Athens, Ohio, Courtside Pizza, Athens, Ohio, hello to all my friends there. But yeah, like it was, we'd pull up a table, have a pitcher of very cheap beer. And looking back at the prices at the time, I'm like, wow, how did we ever spend that little money on that amount of food? But the point is what Brixx became for me when I was then in North Carolina. Brixx became my Friday night pizza and beer place. That was why I really enjoyed it because I had one about 10 minutes from my house. And it was pizza and beer, which is, delivered from the gods as far as combinations and food go. So I say all that because that to me was sort of like an experiential loyalty. When we talk about loyalty now, I think it does get caught up in points and freebies and membership and status. How does Brixx approach the concept of loyalty? Is it a loyalty program or is it just encouraging repeat? Like, how do you encourage that repeat business and build those loyal customers?
Well, it's all of that, what you just said. I mean, we are highly focused on loyalty programs and more importantly, part of our training and what we try to instill in our front of the house team, which again is another advantage of having full service. We absolutely teach techniques to get to know our guests by first name basis, to create that family atmosphere so that they feel welcomed. And then more importantly, getting to know them, not only that dining experience, but when they come back. How do you do that? There's a lot of training that goes into that I won't get into that right now, but I can tell you that is building loyalty is about creating a guest experience that's unmatched. And you only can do that through one of three ways: food, service, and atmosphere. That's it. You can't do it. I mean, if there's another way to do it, tell me. But if we've got the food, we know that. We got to get the service down right. We know that. And the atmosphere speaks for itself. So we have a model. I'll go back to what I started with, a business model that's very attractive. And I can tell you that when we get the right investors involved, there'll be companies out there that are going to want to put 10 to 15 Brixxes in their portfolio. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Right.
So I can tell you that it's the best concept I've worked with. And the funny thing about it is when I came into the concept 16 months ago, I thought, wow, they're killing it, but we could do even better because we're kind of outdated in some systems and processes. So what we've been working on the last 16 months, I'll get a little more detail, is not just infrastructure is a broad term, but when you talk about changing finance and accounting systems from cash-based to accrual-based, or just working on getting the systems in your restaurants that make sense and the ones that don't make sense out, becoming a simply great operating system with a non-complex menu, that is a significant challenge in 15 months. But our team rose to the occasion, and we are spot on right now with where we need to be in order to go out and find the investors to grow our brand. So I'm super excited about that. I got to tell you, and some of the brands that I've worked with, Sam, I'm telling you, look, they're not doing some of the things that we're doing, and that's what excites me the most. The great thing about a smaller company is that you can pivot very quickly.
Totally.
I can make a decision tomorrow and pivot. With a company that has 1,000 units or 650, it's like passing an act of Congress to pivot. So
it's turning the cruise ship around, right?
Exactly. So I am super excited. The founders are great people. They've been so good to me. And, I promised them I'd take the baton and run forward with it, never losing what they built this company on. And that's great food at a value.
That's great. Well, Scott Isaacs, the president of Brixx Wood Fired Pizza. Really appreciate your time today. I'm glad to reminisce and be nostalgic about one of my favorites out of North Carolina. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
That was my interview with Brixx Wood Fired Pizza's Scott Isaacs. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that smart operations plus healthy finances equal a strong brand. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Of course, you're in this business. You understand that's true. But it's important to remember that there is a balance between these two things. Sometimes smart operations might be too expensive. They might get your finances all out of whack because you're investing too much in the operations. Simultaneously, maybe you're too focused on finances and your operations are getting out of control. Scott has a unique position that he's worked on both sides of this equation, and so he's very keenly aware of the balance that those two things require. Now, of course, underlying this whole conversation was the fact that full-service pizza is actually not doing so great as a category. If you look at several other of Brixx's competitors across the board, many of them are struggling right now. It's not to say that full-service pizza as a category is not viable or won't be strong in the years ahead, but all of these players are really trying to figure out their position here. And to emphasize this takeaway of mine, it's to say, if you are full-service pizza, yeah, the category might not be doing great, but if you can focus on the operations and the financing and make sure you're smart and strong on either side of that equation, you can hopefully get through these headwinds that the category and industry at large is in right now and get to a place where you can be very, very healthy. My second takeaway is that all we're going to talk about in the year ahead is value, value, value. I've been talking about it for the last couple of episodes. You're probably talking about it in all your conversations. You're probably focused on it. If you're not, you should be. Last week, I talked with Beto Guajardo, the CEO of Blaze Pizza. So that's, of course, the fast casual pizza perspective. And I was happy to talk with Scott for the full service pizza perspective. Why? Because to me, pizza is value. I mentioned this in my conversation with Scott, but the fact is, every Friday, I do pizza with my family. I'm an American, let's face it. This is something we all do. And I'm getting all the notifications from all the major chains about all the deals. And if you go to all the major chains' websites, what do you see? At the very top, there is a deals link for all of them. And it's always bundles and discounting. These chains, pizza as a category, very, very value oriented. Good reason for that. We mentioned it on the podcast last week with Beto Guajardo, the fact that pizza is a lot of quality and quantity, especially, and typically at a lower price point. So what does that mean for full service pizza? That was what I wanted to talk with Scott about. Scott said they are leaning into value, but it's not the typical value equation that you might expect from a pizza chain, in that they're focused more on the broader experience, the fact that you can get an alcoholic beverage, you can feed a family of 4 for a modest price point, compared with some other full service restaurants. You might walk out, $150, $200 poorer. They're expecting to keep that number much lower, and yet you're going to still feel very satisfied with the experience that you're getting. So they're not going to discount, they're not going to bundle, but they are going to provide value nonetheless in the experience that they're providing and in the robust menu that they're providing, which expands far beyond pizza. My third takeaway is that you should raise prices because you have to, not because you can. I really appreciated Scott getting into that conversation about pricing. He said Brixx has only taken price twice, I believe he said, in the last 18 months, versus some other companies have done 4, 5, 6 price increases. He made this really great point. He said, you can price the heck out of things, but it is a short-term result. As he said, customers will only put up with it for so long. We see that, of course, post first quarter this year, we've hit a tipping point. Customers have given up on the higher prices. Sales and traffic are down largely across the board. Pricing is so important to this. Is so important as a reason for why this is happening, of course. And so to his point, just because you can raise prices doesn't mean you should, because there's so much risk that comes along with it. If you're looking at your P&L, pricing really should be the last solution to get things in balance, because it is that is such a dangerous position to put yourself in with your customers. And without customers, really, what are you in the end? My fourth takeaway is that the next generation might have a different definition of value, and you need to adapt. So continuing with the value conversation, Scott was talking about the fact that, of course, Gen Z and millennials, the digital channels are so important to them when it comes to value. And he specifically called out loyalty. He was saying, if you don't pay attention to their rewards, their points, if you don't give them what they deserve on their loyalty, they will call you out. They are very, very dedicated to their loyalty programs, and they want to earn when you allow them to earn. And that is going to be very much a part of what they are determining as being value. He pointed out Howard Johnson's and its refusal to adapt led to the demise of Howard Johnson's. Very, very famous story, of course. And while that may be a bit cliche by now, you do have to consider that your refusal to adapt your business model can lead to your irrelevance. And that is very true today in the value wars that are ongoing and will continue on. If you don't adapt your value equation and meet customers where they are expecting value, then you could become irrelevant. Look at what the younger generations especially want out of value. And by the way, continue to look down the road. Gen Alpha, my kids' generation, that's like under 12 years old basically right now, they might have a different definition of value. You should be paying attention to it now, because 10 years from now, we're going to be having the same conversation and we're going to be talking a totally different value equation at that point in time. My fifth and final takeaway is that food, service, and atmosphere are three critical ingredients to loyalty. So again, just to emphasize, I was really interested in talking with Scott for a few reasons. I mentioned them in the interview. First one was, I lived in North Carolina many years, and I was a big fan of Brixx. It was one of my go-to spots because there was one not too far from my house. And I think it's a really cool concept. And I really love full-service pizza restaurants because of the experience of getting a pizza and a beer sitting in a nice atmosphere. Of course, the state of the casual pizza category today is really fascinating to watch, because it is, down right now. But how does it turn things around? And this was the point of the conversation I thought really drilled that home. Scott mentioned that the quality of your food and the quality of your service and the quality of your atmosphere can generate loyalty. Yes, you should have, a lower price point, a value offering. And of course, when you think loyalty, yes, you should reward for frequent visits. But your great food and service and atmosphere, those lead to great memories. And if you can create great memories with the guest, they are going to come back. Myself, I mentioned it in the interview. I had a go-to spot when I was in college. And then after graduating college, I was always looking for that go-to Friday night pizza and beer spot, somewhere to go. Of course, now it's all at home because I have kids. But, that dine-in experience isn't ever going to go anywhere. And that is true. That makes that full service pizza experience still so important and still so viable, even if things might be down right now. So all to say, focus on food, focus on service, and focus on atmosphere. If you haven't thought about those three ingredients to loyalty, you should be focused on them now. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.